Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for Latitude for making this happen in a nice, safe, responsible way. It's nice to see you guys here. A fair amount considering people usually are pretty hungover on a Friday morning on day 2 of Latitude. So I appreciate you guys being around. So I think this is the last slide, but I like starting with a call to action. We are hiring. Perfect. So my name is Niko. I'm founder at bobw.co, or Bob W. And we are a smarter, tech-driven alternative to hotels and hosted apartments. We are basically the best of the hotel experience and the best of the short stay experience packaged up into this affordable luxury brand called Bob W. And under the hood, the whole thing runs on tech, so we don't screw things up and give you a great experience, a 5-star experience at scale. So that's where I'm at today, and I absolutely love where I'm at. I have a personal product market fit with my own startup. I have an amazing co-founder. We have an amazing business. I love our team. I love our guests, etc. But it always hasn't been this way. I think as we've gathered from Raimond's and Vicky's story as well, that it's about sort of trying to find the path of how do we find to do things that, gives us fulfillment and gives us the chance to really live out our own career in a meaningful way. So the backstory, I'm originally from Finland. I grew up in London. I went to uni in the States. And I've always been this sort of creative sales idea person kind of guy. But I had told myself in college that, all successful young guys go to, I want to be a management consultant or a banker. That's what young successful guys do. That's how you make a lot of money when you're young. You get respected. All the ladies want to date you. It's going to be great. And so I applied to a bunch of management consultant roles. McKinsey, 3 interviews in Helsinki, didn't get the job. Boston Consulting Group, 5 interviews in London, didn't get the job. IBM Consulting in Dubai, a couple of interviews, didn't get the job. Capgemini did 5 interviews. The guy said, agreed on salary, agreed on the start date, and they said, all right, so you just have to do this one standard procedure psychological test assessment, and they were solid. So I took the test. A week later, they called me up and said they can't give me the reason, but they can't give me the job anymore. And I was devastated. It's like a bad breakup, but the girl doesn't tell you what was wrong about you. So it haunted me for 10 years. And it was a big learning in terms of, failure, but also down the line, a lesson of, really trying to follow your own path and doing stuff that you feel good at and not listening to the white noise of what career should be like. So then eventually I went into banking. They obviously didn't care about psychological tests. They just wanted you to make money. So I did that for a few years, and it was like trying to put a circular peg into a square hole. Didn't feel good, but I felt like, I'm a performer. I must do this stuff. But eventually, the true colors were starting to come out. I thought, hey, I got into grad school. I'm going to go to Finland. University's free, start a business, and do a Steve Jobs and drop out of college. Or then if I screw it up, then I'll tell everybody I'm here for the masters and go back to the corporate world. Well, luckily we started a company called SportSetter. I was one of the co-founders. Fitness activities marketplace, 15,000 gyms, yoga studios, rock climbing arenas in one app. We raised like 4 million, but the journey was anything except smooth. And what happened was, first of all, I made the first mistake, picked the wrong co-founder. Nothing against the co-founder, but essentially, I knew that we were way too. In hindsight, I knew we were way too similar. We had the similar interest. We had an opinion on marketing, and neither of us wanted to do accounting or finance. So that was mistake number 1, and eventually that meant that 2 years we kept fighting on everything, and we had failed investment rounds, which propelled then that the other co-founder left the company. I hung on, and then we had another failed investment round. We had a tough time finding product market fit. We ended up having to, at some point, because of this failed investment round, lay off all 22 employees, which any of you guys who've been through that process is one of the most gut-wrenching things to do. And we talked about before is, we talked about, Raimond's mentioned that the fear is what keeps us going. Well, you're pretty much starting to look failure in the face when you're telling 22 people one meeting after another that I'm going to have to let you guys go. And that was a massive learning through there. Now, at the end of the day, we actually got lucky and found a better product market fit and grew and expanded to the UK and sold the company in 2016 to the largest corporate benefits conglomerate in the Nordics. But a massive example of just making all the wrong decisions within the company. So then I needed a break. I wanted to find yin, yang, zen, whatever I could get my hands on, as I was sort of struggling with how can I really find something that's gonna be passionate, it's gonna keep me happy, it's not just gonna be a driver of this, fear of screwing it up, etc. So basically I went to Asia and spent 8 months there. And maybe just taking back just a little bit, I had always, actually I'm gonna go back one slide since I can. The second part that I wanted to talk about was hospitality. So at the tender age of 14, this was my first summer job. I was the front desk manager at an 8-room bed and breakfast. It was the most fun I've ever had, the most amazing job. I got paid for responsibility because they thought I had to stick around there for the entire day to wait till guests to come. And I just created a list, put a phone there, and with a nice sign that says, "I'll be here in 10 minutes if you need me." So I basically spent the entire summer on the beach and playing tennis and stuff like that. And when they called me, I would zoom in and let them in. So I think I've had the most financial freedom of my life during those times because it was still candy days and there was no booze and rent to pay or mortgages. So amazing experience, but I completely neglected it, forgotten about it. Then in 2008, I had applied to Starwood's hotelier program, management program. And I thought, amazing. I remember that this was something I really enjoyed and I wanted to do. So for a moment, I forgot about consulting and banking and applied for this job. And then did the interviews, I got in and waited. The first gig was supposed to be in Belgium. Now this was 2008. So in between me getting accepted and the job starting, the market crashed. And so did the hotel industry, so they canned the whole program. So I wasn't gonna be a hotelier after all, so I got lost in the dark. And then in 2012, I had started doing Airbnb management in apartments. So again, in the same hospitality space. First my apartment, then a friend's apartment, brother's apartment, investment apartment, etc. And all the times when I hated life with the startup space, always loved doing hospitality. And yet still the bells were never ringing. So then going to Asia. Over there, I started having an epiphany. Spent 8 months doing Muay Thai boxing camp, trying to find, like as I mentioned, yin yang or zen. And don't know if I found that, but we found an idea. And that was, first of all, recognize that these apartments that I'm managing in Helsinki, there's no employee there. We're just managing to get 5-star experience, one of the best ranked apartments in the city, and there's no employees, just a cleaner. So there's some kind of there's method to the madness here, and there's something that we could really do with tech as well that could really make this different. And then after that, we looked at, that why am I spending 8 months in Asia, but spend, 80% of my transient nights I'm doing in a hotel, not a short stay, an Airbnb, a Booking.com apartment. And it really went down into lack of quality standards, a hit or miss. In the hotel industry, you've got almost every hotel has a quality standard associated with 3-star, 4-star, etc. Half of the the hotels are also branded. In the short stay rental industry, for any of you guys who've stayed, you know that there's, what do you do with keys? Does this place have a washing machine? Will this guy answer my call? Is it a real apartment, etc.? So you looked at the 4.4 million short stay rentals in Europe alone, and you're like, all right. So they've got zero quality standards that are that all consumers can relate to, and 0.5% of them are unbranded. So it's a mom and pop industry. So we're going to solve this problem of this quality standard and this hit or miss by elevating that, bringing it through with technology, taking the best of the hotel and the short stay rental experience. So then, hello, Bob. And at that point, we started sparring with my co-founder, Sebastian, and really started thinking, okay, how are we going to tackle this? So I'm in Asia, still at some random Muay Thai boxing camp, and he's a German guy in Ireland. So we decide to move back to Helsinki, get apartment 1. So no funders at this point. This is Sebastian doing financial modeling, I think, as usual. And we decided that we are just going to, beggars can't be choosers. We get started with 1 apartment. And we tried it all ourselves. We started getting different products into the apartment, started figuring out what is the utility that our customer demographic is looking for, 20 to 45-year-old urban middle class, and the companies that employ this target demographic. So we tried the beds. We even did a little booze cabinet alcohol, which I think our first guest pointed out that it's illegal in Finland. So we very quickly took that thing down as well. It's like, good point. We need a liquor license for that. And did all the furnishing ourselves, etc. And did sort of crash courses into how to design apartments, etc. And then this sort of obsession, we got up to 5 apartments, and this obsession started with, okay, how are we going to create this 5-star experience? And that was something that was really important for us, is to really focus on, solving this problem, but solving it every time. In a classical people business, and it started paying off, this sort of, how do we give a 5-star experience to every guest, every visit at scale? And this was I think this kept us going for a month, that some dude had on the Ritz-Carlton ticket says, here is better than the Ritz-Carlton. And I think we even showed this in our first deck to get the first 50K. So then setbacks. So we're just trying to bring good numbers to show, hey, we're beating the market. We're adding values. It's not apples to oranges comparison here. And so what ended up happening was we get water damage in our apartment. And we're like, this is unbelievable. We've barely got enough units to show that it's a real business, that it's not just one good apartment that does a good job. But we get water damage. And then the next day, we get water damage in another apartment. So that's 2 out of 5 apartment that goes out of commission. And you're just like, what the hell is happening here? What are the odds? 1% of all households in Helsinki get water damage per year, and we get 2. And then this place gets another water damage as they're fixing it, and we're just like, maybe we're in the wrong business here. And of course, then we had our lock system failed. So we had guests that we used a remote smart lock, and we had guests that would never make it into the apartments. And so my birthday party, I spent letting 3 different people into apartments who had all arrived in a late flight to Helsinki. So then we figured, okay, we got to pivot. Why did that come along? Well, first of all, working on this, we figured out on the supply side that, hey, scattered apartments doesn't make any sense. And meanwhile, somebody had managed to garner a bunch of apartments in a building, and basically the media and the city of Helsinki had deemed it illegal, a secret hotel. So we thought, okay, we got to think of something new. So neither of us have never lived in Tallinn before. Obviously visited here like most of us Finns. We show up here, get drunk, make a fool out of ourselves, and buy cheap booze and go back home. But aside from that, not really done a lot of visiting here. Stayed with Latitude a few times and loved the vibes in Telliskivi. But so the first investor in Bolt, Mikko Silventala, had said, you guys should go in there. Really dynamic vibes. And also on top of that, there's a sort of building boom as well. So we found this failed this is a commercial real estate, but the deal had failed. So we actually managed to get and snake in 3 months before it was open, and building number 1, 41 units, and really so we could play to the scale and to the advantages of the model that we were building. So neither of us have never lived in Tallinn, but in August last year, we opened the building up. So today, that's what it is. 41 suites in Tallinn's creative district. We are ranked. We're ranked as the top hospitality provider in Tallinn. We beat the market in terms of occupancy. Currently, we're like a 91% against 40%, etc. So we basically were able to now start showing these metrics, etc., that the thing really works. And I'm running out of time, so I'm going to be a little bit quicker here. And we integrated the neighborhood. So that's what it ended up being from that initial story. And I guess, so the lessons that I wanted to do, and I'm going to eat 30 seconds into question time, if that's okay, is basically find your real calling, would be the first lesson. That this whole story of mine is basically just doing the path that others or I think that I should be doing, as opposed to doing it yourself. So clearly, hospitality was a calling for me, and I just looked at it dead in the face and didn't follow through with it. So that would be, it's like, if you can't figure it out yourself that, I love bikes, or I love gossiping, because there's businesses in all of those, then ask your friends, what are you obsessed about? And so that would be a key learning for me there. Then, second is get real about what you suck at. Because the main thing, which is why I feel like I'm loving my life, is that I'm working with people that are complementing to the skill sets that I suck at. Too much of us are banging our heads because we're startup entrepreneurs, we're going to do all of it ourselves, and we're going to be winners. But in fact, if we get real about what we suck at, we are able to build a world-class team around us. And that goes to the last point, being people. So that's been the best learning of why now we are in a great position. We've raised 4 million euros recently. We've got great product market fit. We've got great cash flows. We've tackled Corona, is because found a co-founder who is exactly that, at opposite skill sets, and a world-class founder, and world-class at what he does, which is what I absolutely suck at. And you can take this broader to the people you work with, whether they're investors or your colleagues, and you will create amazing things. Polarity of skill sets, different abilities, and too often we work with people who are way too similar to us, and I think that's been a key success for us. So without further ado, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. No, Niko.
Allegedly.
First question, what's with the name?
So Bob W, we wanted to create this sort of the brand around this avatar of the perfect host. Any of us who stayed in a bunch of Airbnbs or Booking.coms knows that when the host is really on point, it really is on point. And Bob W is that perfect host. But our little secret is that actually Bob W stands for best of both worlds.
Oh.
We were trying to do like Viking names and stuff like that, but we just couldn't find a good name. And we're like, the brief is best of both worlds. And then somebody pointed out the acronym spells a name as well. And you can't mispronounce it, and Bob W is the perfect host. So,
Nice to know. Cool story behind the name also, because it always, when you put the name to a startup that nobody can figure out at first, then they think about it all the time, like, what does that name mean? Until they can ask you. And secondly, I basically live on the Telliskivi Street.
Yep.
Why don't I know about you?
So you live on the street, so you don't necessarily have a need for it. But now
you don't market to me, right?
Well, I just did. So now.
Now I know. Yeah. Couple of questions from Slido. What would you recommend to consider while searching for a co-founder? I guess the first thing you already mentioned, that
polar skill sets.
Polar skill sets. So anything else that you would like to point out?
Similar values. You got to pick people who care about the same stuff. And it's cliche. I'm sure a lot of people say it up here, but you really got to pick people who believe in the same stuff as you do, and the same way that you operate. And that's the only way you'll make it.
And the second question from Slido is, how do you build your resilience? Basically, how you keep on kicking? What gets you up in the morning?
I guess it's either greed or fear. It depends on the day. Fear of fucking up or greed of getting it right. So that's probably it. And I think once you get a taste of the real life in terms of in startups and this ability to create something magical, you can't go back to doing normal stuff. So you're just inherently willing to take the risk.
Amazing story. Thank you, Niko. Give a big applause.